Most people who want to get into real estate development never actually do their first deal. Why is that?
The number one blocker is not money or fear, it's just not knowing the process. They Google how to start development, but nobody really hands them a blueprint, right? And so it's the eternal researcher that just keeps researching for years but never actually starts.
So, is watching YouTube videos and doing research not enough?
Free content gives you awareness, not execution. And that's actually the most expensive education that there is. When you are looking at YouTube videos, you're not learning how to read plans or structure an agreement with investors or negotiate with the general contractors or structure a draw schedule, right? That's the gap, knowing about development versus how to do a deal.
But there's so much information out there, courses, mentors, programs. How does someone even know what to trust?
You want to find someone who's actively developing. Most courses are teaching you about development, but not about your actual deal in your market, your numbers, and run you through like how things need to work behind the scenes. So I think it's core to find someone who's actively developing. And so what I offer is true mentorship and not just a course. We're not a course that is DIY style. We really are hands-on, and you see my deals and I walk you through your deal in your market with your numbers.
Okay, so walk me through it. If someone watching this wanted to do their first development deal, what's the actual process from start to finish?
Generally, the first step is always the feasibility, right? You want to make sure that the deal generally works before you spend more time on it. Then you've got your deal scorecard, making sure that, hey, it's even worth taking on that project. Then you've got your due diligence process where you really are under contract. You are like making sure that, hey, this legitimately works out, right? Then you have your pre-construction and construction phase, and then you have your exit. So those are like generally the 5 big steps. How I look at a deal, when I first, get a deal in from a wholesaler, from a realtor, off market, whatever, then I generally spend 5 minutes to maximum 10 whether that deal even is worth my time. So it's really back of the napkin, looking at, okay, where do I think that the exit is gonna be, right? Am I gonna sell this for $1 million, $2 million? Then I look at, okay, what do I even need to build, right? That's sort of goes hand in hand, obviously, figuring out where you can sell something at. But I look at how fancy do I need to build? What is it really gonna cost me? And then I look at, obviously, how long is the deal gonna be, like in terms of the financing horizon. Is it going to take me a year, 18 months, or is it a larger townhome deal? It's going to take 2.5 years. And then I back into pretty much what I can afford for the lot, right? So if we have, for the sake of simple numbers, a deal where we're trying to sell for $500,000 on the back end, then I still want to make at least $80,000 to $100,000 per that unit, right? If we're building $2 million, then I really want to be at a minimum around 15-17%, so 350,000 plus. So what I then do is like I back into what I can afford for the lot, right? If I think it's too skinny, let's just say if you're selling it at 500,000 and it's just like a $50,000 profit, unless I can do this super fast and it's just super ready to go, I don't even have to come up with plans. I maybe am able to use an existing plan. I wouldn't take that on, right? There's just not enough buffer. As we all know, the market can change. And so it's really important to think about this on the front end. Hey, do I have enough room? And that's why even on the realtor side, although I own a brokerage, we still calculate with 6% on the back end to make sure that, hey, yeah, if we want to do this for 5, then we have 1 extra percent that we can give in concessions to the end buyer, but we have some more buffer to play with, right? So generally, that's what I do in the due diligence period. Really think through, okay, what can I actually here do? And obviously, before we take something under contract, we feel really good about that we can make this work, but that's pretty much my last instance, either to walk or to fix the acquisition price, right? From there, we proceed to closing. Usually, we have anywhere from 30 to 45 days. Sometimes if it's a larger townhome deal, it can be up to 120, 180 days, right? Or in this market, we have contingencies that we need to rezone something or need to subdivide. And I think it's super, super important in this market today that you do this while you have it under contract. So those are really the steps that get you into a deal. And then obviously there's a whole bunch that follows, like working through it. But I think the biggest part about development is getting that front end, because that's something that you really truly cannot fix at a later point.
So that sounds like a lot. How long does all of this actually take?
Yeah, so it always depends what you're trying to develop, right? If we're trying to do urban infill, it very much can be within, let's just say, 8 to 12 months period total of entering and leaving a deal. In order to get into a deal, as fast as a month to 4 months. One of our members closed on a lot within 6 months. That was just also him really learning the full skill set, right? Once you learn the skill set and you have it, you're going to be significantly faster. It just always depends how fast you apply yourself and how much you apply yourself to learning the skill set. We can get into a deal anywhere from 1 to 4 months, I would say. From there, you get faster as you go.
So, can you give me a real example? Walk me through one member's deal from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reggie learned a skill set, I think he started in February, mid-end February, and then felt comfortable within a month to start talking with planners about zoning and whatnot. He's in Atlanta, and started underwriting deal after deal. It always takes a minute to find the cherries. And then he successfully closed on his first deal within about 6 months. And from there, he found literally the week after another lot. So then it went substantially faster. So he first went for a duplex and is now buying up the adjacent lots as well. Actually ends up rezoning this one. So that is a rezoning case. And then the other one is a 1.5 million luxury build. And so that was like literally a week after from finding the first deal. So 6 months is about really a good timeline when you really apply yourself.
Okay, so what about someone who has a full-time job right now? Can they really do this on the side?
Absolutely. Mario still has a full-time job as a civil engineer. There's so many others too. And you just got to make sure that you build your team right. You want to make sure that the architect you hire, the builder, whatnot, that they don't need babysitting, but that basically you can manage them well and that they really implement your feedback that you give them and that you can trust your builder. But it is very important that in the mornings or evenings, weekends, that you make sure that you are on site at least twice a week. In the beginning, it's more important just making sure that everything gets started well, but you can totally manage a development or a full construction project while you still have a W-2 job.
So switching gears, you came from Germany with zero, no credit, no network, no blueprint. How did you learn the process?
Try and error, and I basically paid my dues by just really paying the hard way through mistakes. I remember our first deal, we actually utilized garage doors on the third floor for a rooftop because at the time it was really in Nashville, but we did not even consider having a longer overhang basically for weather conditions. So we ultimately ended up having some water damage and we had to fix it. But the builder didn't even really speak up, and I think when you actually reflect on it, I think they probably should have said something, but we didn't know better. So I learned the hard way by just then realizing you have to factor in these different components. You can't just go for it just because it looks cool, right? Or different materials, different things. But we also, for the first year, actually almost weren't able to build the last 2 units because we had essentially started the first 2 units to get grandfathered in before we could subdivide the property. But then we actually ended up building it, the first two, too close to the sidewalk. You have a public right-of-way that is reserved for the city, right, for utilities and all that. And I had the best land use attorney that helped me push through this and us figuring this out. But at the end of the day, I learned just tremendously the hard way and had a lot of sleepless nights and no weekends. And that is part of it. If you say, okay, all right, I'm not going to be investing in myself, whatnot, you're gonna be in it for a roller coaster ride. And I think back at the time we didn't have coaching, right? We didn't really have a community. That's why I'd started in 2023 the Developer Academy, to avoid that for other people, for them to have an easier time. But yeah, you pay dearly when you are going for it, just try and error.
So what's the cost of not having a process? What happens to people who just wing it?
Attaching a number to try and error is always hard, right? But I think one member comes to mind. She started with actually already being passed the due diligence in our program. So she joined the program but already had a deal that she couldn't back out. So the earnest money was hard at that point. And we saved her about $60,000 to $100,000 because the deal just did not pencil. So instead of losing $60,000 to $100,000, she just walked away from the $5,000 earnest money. We saved a lot of money right there. So I would say in real estate, when you learn, it's always an expensive mistake. You're not just learning usually for $1,000, $2,000. You're learning for $5,000 is actually cheap. If you don't, a lot of times you're really in the $50,000, $100,000 plus. Yeah, learning in real estate development doesn't come cheap. What are you truly missing? And how do you obtain filling in that gap? Is it really with a mentor? Is it starting to just underwrite, try and error, doing the hard way? Find a way to really start taking action.
Okay. Last question. If someone watching this has been researching development for months or even years, but still has not started, what's the one thing they should do right now?
Stop trying to learn everything before you start. Start by looking at one deal through that 5-step process that I talked about earlier. Can you actually find a deal in your market, underwrite it, know what the deal is worth, what you can pay for the lot? If you don't have that, then that is the gap. And that's where you can utilize my developer roadmap that they can also find here in the bio below. But I think that's really the biggest piece. Don't try to learn everything before you start. There's no way that's feasible. You learn as you go.